What's up, hackers? Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and today we're going to be doing some more blue team work, continuing down the THM Soc Path. I'm pretty excited for what we have going on today. But before we get there, as always on Saturdays, we're going to cover a little bit of the cyber news from this week. Three stories that I wanted to talk about briefly. The first one being the 0 day, actually the set of 0 days that Apple has patched this last week. Now, whenever Apple patches 0 days, it's going to make the news. But one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit here wasn't just that Apple patched these 0 days that had been exploited by the NSO group and others to, gain remote code execution on iOS and iPad OS devices, which by the way, it was through, one of them was through like a PDF exploit, which was kind of interesting. But the real reason I wanted to talk about this particular news item is because of the way that it has been reported. And it's been reported in a way that I find particularly unhelpful. So let's back this up. Remember that the usage of these exploits was really by targeted spying, right, by intelligence organizations. So in terms of your likelihood of being targeted, unless you are a person of interest, fairly low. Now, should you be concerned? Yeah, but you have to, calibrate that. And the breathless reporting from news outlets, where it's always like, oh my God, patch your Apple stuff right now, is not helpful. Because if every single 0 day, and we are seeing a bumper crop of 0 days in the last 2 years, and it's probably going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. Whenever you report, or if you report every single 0 day with the same exasperation, with the same level of alarm, then people are going to become numb to those alerts. And when something really scary that actually does affect everybody is released, people will not take the appropriate swift action, the appropriate measures to protect themselves. So I have a real problem with every time a really newsy 0 day comes out because it's Apple, right? It gets reported in this like, oh my God, patch now, patch now, patch now, because it inures people to other concerns. Speaking of other concerns, we have oh my God. Now this affects fewer people, but its impact could be much bigger. Do I think other bad actors might start exploiting the same vuln though? So we haven't seen as many proof of concept exploits. We know that it was attacked in the wild, but we haven't seen like open source exploits as far as I know for the NSO Pegasus vulns. So is it possible? Absolutely. And the great news with Apple is that you're going to get you're going to get those updates anyway. My point is that what is your time scale, right? And what level of panic do you need to cause for everybody in order to get the remediation that you need based on the threat model? Dust on Keyboard, good to see you. Gingerroot, good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about, oh man, why are my slides not updating? That's really annoying. Let me see if I can fix that. Change this briefly. Let's go back to stream slides. Nope, wrong. There it is. Huh. Yeah, just not updating. I wonder if that's... Oh, there we go. Now it's updating. Okay, so oh my God. What was oh my God? Oh my God was named after the Open Management Infrastructure, which was the open source tool that Microsoft deployed in the background to some Linux virtual machines that were spun up in the Azure cloud environment. There were a number of services that you had to enable in order to get this thing to kind of kick off in the background. But if you did, then a service got opened on port 5985 or 5986 if it was over HTTPS. And if that sounds familiar, that's because OMI is the open source and for Linux version of the Windows Management Infrastructure Tool, or WMI, which we've used a bunch on this stream to exploit Windows boxes. But WMI was not intended as an attack tool, of course. Originally, it was designed for remote management of Windows systems. So OMI is a tool actually from Microsoft that allows the same kind of management, but for Linux machines. Here's the problem. There was an issue with the authentication mechanism of OMI, where if you stripped out the authentication header, right, in the HTTP request, the commands that the tool was running ran as root because it was a zero. Basically, it returned zero, and what user has the ID 0 in a Linux system? It's root. So pretty like unbelievable low level vulnerability, but the impact is severe. So with that, once you have root on a Linux VM in Azure, right, you're able to pivot a lot of different ways. There are things you might be able to do with a metadata API depending on how the Azure VM is deployed. There are a lot of really interesting things with Azure that make this such a scary vulnerability. And the other problem with oh my God is that we're now 4 months after disclosure to Microsoft, and they announced it just this week. Here's the thing though, they still don't have a way for users to have an automatic patch. If you are vulnerable to this particular issue, you have to manually go into every single VM and update the version of OMI yourself. Now, if you have 1 or 2 VMs going, that might not be a problem, but if you're a scaled up organization using a bunch, hundreds of virtual machines, that could be a real big issue. So it really is yet another reason why I am still skeptical of the easy fixes coming from cloud vendors. I try to use the special services from cloud vendors as little as possible so that I can control as much of the pipeline as I can. I want to use their infrastructure so I'm not paying for storage, compute, and electricity, but I don't want them to take away so much control over the software pipeline that I have to trust them, because time and time again, it seems like I'm going to get burned if I do. One more Microsoft story that just came out yesterday, actually, and I've kind of been waiting for this one to drop because it has always seemed like it was technically possible. But it turns out that attackers are now using the Windows subsystem for Linux to obscure their malware payloads. And this happens because of a really interesting interactivity layer that is possible between the Windows subsystem for Linux and the host Windows operating system. Now, WSL 1 was this really crazy like emulation layer that was technically more interesting than WSL 2. WSL version 2 is basically just a straight up virtual machine. It uses like a Hyper-V emulation layer or virtualization layer, and it has this interactivity with the host file system, and there's a lot of really cool stuff under the hood that's happening. But you can, and when I first did this, I couldn't quite believe it, but you can run executables from like Windows executables from WSL. But when you do so, the process tree looks a little bit different. And so if I have a malicious file that Windows Defender, for example, might detect execution of and prevent, but I do it through WSL, I may be able to bypass some of those protections, and research from Checkpoint Security suggests that is exactly possible. So it's no longer theoretical. We have seen these kinds of attacks happening in the wild, WSL being enabled by the dropper and then used as the kind of payload vector to deploy more malicious executables that are invisible to the process tree of the Windows system. So I'm sure we're going to see more about this. We might even play with it a little bit on stream at some point. I'm really interested because I'm a heavy WSL user, and I really want to know more about how those processes are visible and not. Because you can, like, if you look at my own Sysmon usage, like, you'll see that there's mostly it's bash in or other shell stuff inside of WSL. So it can see some things. And the question is, like, where does that line get drawn? So I think there's a lot more research to be done on that. I'm really excited to see what happens. But for today, we are going to, oh, good, the slides are still not updating. There we go. But for today, we are going to jump back into Sysmon. We have a little bit more of the Sysmon room and TryHackMe to finish up. These are proper investigations. They've given us some EVTX files, and we're going to dig through them. And we're going to use both the event viewer and the command line, so we're going to get comfy with that. And then we're going to move over to the OSQuery room, which I have started before, but didn't really finish because I got stuck on this weird pathing issue, which I have since figured out. OSQuery is a really, really neat tool that you should consider deploying in your environment if you haven't deployed tools that cover what it does already. Being able to pull logs and system data on demand from your entire deployment fleet is, I think, a really powerful capability. And the fact that it's an open source tool that allows you to do that and is cross-platform, by the way, really makes it appealing. So we're going to check that out, but first let's jump into our Sysmon room and get this investigation going. All right. Get some music back. There we go. All right. So, we're in the Sysmon room, and I have already downloaded the task files here. And even though I'm here in my Kali machine, which is what I connect to TryHackMe through the Kali machine just to sort of isolate the connection. Even though I'm in that, I am going to use my Windows host machine for a lot of today's investigation, because that's where I have Sysmon running, and that's where I can easily parse the EVTX files. To keep it a little bit simpler for everybody watching too, I'm going to not use the Python tool that we have been building for the last week, just because I want this a little bit more accessible. But we will return to building out the Sysmon parsing tool in Python that we've been building. We'll be returning to that on Wednesday. All right, so these are just sort of the summaries of the investigation files that we have, and here they are. in all their glory in my Windows side. So let's take a look at one of them. We're looking at Investigation 1 in the Windows Event Viewer. Now, if you are playing along and you open up this file in your Windows Event Viewer, you may not see the task categories. If you don't, it's because you haven't installed Sysmon on your host system. In order for these task categories to be parsed, your Windows system needs to have Sysmon installed. So if you don't have Sysmon installed, go ahead and install it. It's, you know, definitely worth doing so that you can have those logs from your own system. It's not that heavy as a logging source. Strongly recommended, especially with the Swift on security configuration for exclusions of common things. Okay, so we don't actually have that many events in this particular investigation, and so we can probably just point and click our way to glory on this one. What is the full registry key of the USB device calling SVC host in investigation 1? So let's quickly get up the Sysmon event listing just so that we have that as a reference. Right, we're going to be looking probably at event ID 13, right? A registry event, which is a value set, or yeah, I think 13 is where we're going to be living here. So let's take a look for event ID 13. Yeah, there we go. So the image getting loaded here, this HKLM, this is the actual key. I'm going to look at this in the XML view because I find it actually easier than the friendly view. See what I mean? So that would be the entire registry key that we're looking for, I hope. Great. And what is the device name when being called by raw access read? Let's again go back to our events. We're looking at event ID 9 for raw access read, right? Reading operations from the drive using the / denotation. So we're looking for event ID 9. We have a bunch of these. And they're asking for what's the name of the drive, right? Or the name of the device. So it'd be /device hard disk volume 3. Let's look at the others just to see if there's anything different. Nope, think that's it. We're probably going to be able to power through this pretty quickly. Okay. What is the first exe the process executes in investigation 1? Let's go back to, so first exe, process execution is ID 1. So let's go look for event ID 1. And first is down here because they're in reverse chronological order. And let me reread the question here. What is the first exe the process executes? Would fhost, I think, is what we're looking for here. No. Is it run DLL32? It's not calc.exe. I have a feeling it's run DLL32. Yes, okay. And then what is the full path of the payload in investigation 2? So we're moving down to investigation 2. For investigation 2, I want to use the command line. So we'll close the event viewer. If we have to go back to it, we will. But I want to try to use the command line here. So I have PowerShell set up. Zoom that in just a little bit. And let's try to use... let's take a look at just what we have. here, select ID time created. We're going to just take a look at what the investigation file has for us. And notice that there are literally just 3 events in here. Really, really, really easy to read. 2 process create events and 1 network connection event. And so the full path to the payload is probably going to be in our command line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select ID 1 in my filter hash table, and I'm going to select expand property because I want the whole message, and get message. There we go. There's the payload right there. Update.hta. So let's look at that in the event viewer just so it's a little bit clearer for everybody as well. Okay, so this first, let's go to the XML. Right, so this first command line, right? Oh, it might be update.html. Because that was the parent. I don't know, though. This feels like it right here. So the command line here is mshta exe. And it's running C users. It's getting this path here, the update.hta. Now, this update.html is probably what the dropper was, but the actual payload with malicious code in it likely is going to be the HTA here. So I have a feeling this is going to be our update.hta. Now, what happened after that? Moving up by 2 seconds, there was a network connection that was triggered by mshta.exe. Where was it going? It was going to 10.0.2.18 from 2.13. These are VirtualBox IP addresses. You can tell that that's where these were run. Over 4443, which is cute. 4444 is the default Metasploit, so this could very well be a Meterpreter shell. And as a matter of fact, with this process create, we can look up this SHA to see what got run. Right, this decom launch. There's the parent command line, our command line, DLL host, process ID, whatever this is. There's a com surrogate here. So I feel like our payload is this HTA. So we're going to give that a shot as our answer here. No? Oh, wait, hold a second. This quote might be. Oh, I copied too much. There we go. What is the full path of the file the payload masked itself as in investigation 2? So I think that was the first thing that we saw, right? That update.html. And what signed binary executed the payload in investigation 2? Well, that's going to be mshta. By the way, we should talk a little bit about what those are. What are HTA files? Old school. These are HTML applications whose source code consists of HTML and things like VBScript or JavaScript. Look how old they are. Introduced to Windows in 1999. and they still work. An HTA is executed with the program mshta.exe. And there are a few things that still use this, but any SOC would be taking a look at executions of mshta and investigating for bizarre patterns. And certainly mshta executing files that are in user writable directories, that should be a tell, because unless it's something very, very odd, you're going to be looking at something that's trying to pull one over on you. You're looking at a malicious payload. And this HTA header, right, is how you get the mshta to work. Just another one of those things in Windows that is inexplicable, but great for attacking. What is the IP of the adversary in Investigation 2? And we saw that as well. Now, you might wonder, like, why aren't we using the command line for some of this just for ease's sake? Because we could, right? If we said, like, we know that the network connection is ID 3 here, right? And we could select message. And if I wanted the whole thing, I use the expand property parameter. Chuck Versus, thank you so much for the follow. So I can absolutely do that, and that's nice and clean. But if I have to do that across multiple events, it might be harder to read. The problem with the message is that it is raw text. So if I needed to hunt for something specific, I could use select string. The problem is that select string, I don't think, because it's across multiple lines, it's going to return the whole thing anyway. Let's see if find stir has the same behavior. I think you can pass some. Okay, so find stir actually works the way that I want. So even though it's not a PowerShell commandlet, you can use find stir, kind of like a grep, to do what you're looking for here. So our destination IP, right, is 10.0.2.18. But yeah, the reason why you might want to choose the event viewer in situations like this is because it allows you to parse through a short number of events quickly. Okay. And the back connect port was 4443. All right, let's move on to investigation 3.1. What is the IP of the suspected adversary in 3.1? Let's go ahead and run through this in the command line first and just see what we're looking at. So we'll get through that. Change this to investigation 3.1, I think. All right, so we're looking at, what is that? 9 events with 3 ID3s, a pipe connection, some registry stuff. Okay, let's take a look at the ID3s. And the problem here, right, again, message is its whole, the whole string. So if I select and expand property message, I'm going to get all of them, but they're kind of all running together, which is why I don't love doing it that way. What I could do is save them in a variable. This is just some PowerShell fun. And I don't even have to do this, right? Isn't there a for each commandlet? Or am I mistaken? There's a for each object. But that's actually more annoying than I want to do. What we need is a new liner. Can I do write host? No, that did not work. Interesting. All right, I'll stop putzing around with that and actually just go get the thing. Let's go back up. Yeah. The destination IP Empire C2. Thank you so much for that. Let's see, what was the question here? What is the IP of the suspected adversary? Yes, indeed. Empire C2. Incredible. Is it literally just Empire C2? It seems like it's not getting parsed correctly. See that? Like, destination is source port name. Yeah, these are off by 1. That's really weird. Let's open this up in the event viewer to see if it's parsed incorrectly there as well. It is. Look at this. That's a little small. Let me zoom that in. Look at this. This is incorrect. See that source port name? That should be down here. Or up, I guess, 1. And destination is IPv6 is false. That should be there. And then destination IP should be there. Hostname should be there. That's crazy. I've never seen that before. Anyway, that's the destination IP. And what is the hostname of the affected endpoint? It's listed here under source IP, but this is the hostname. They might not need the domain. There we go. What is the hostname of the C2 server? We saw that. That was Empire C2. Where in the registry was the payload stored? Okay, so let's go and try. Whoops, wrong command line. let's go check out the command line for this one. And we will look at event ID 12. There it is, registry object added or deleted. And the here right here was image file execution options. Seth C. Oh yeah. Oh man. Seth C's a crazy one. This is actually a privilege escalation path. Let's check out 13. See what we have for the registry events on ID 13. Oh, hello. You love to see it. Look at this. Massive base 64 encoded payload. Now, if you want to know what this is, you can do that lots of different ways. Let's do it with CyberChef. Just cause. This, CyberChef is not usually how I do it, but it's what we'll demonstrate. This is why I don't do it with CyberChef. See all these dots? Does anyone in chat know why we're getting dots in our output from this? It's actually pretty interesting. Okay, let's talk about this. Is a little bit of a departure, but I think if you ever have to do base 64 decoding of something, this is worth talking about because you'll run into this in Windows constantly. Okay, so when we decode this from base 64, right, we're getting out bytes of text, right, and it's trying to be translated into the ASCII table. The problem is that there has to be a specific encoding of the bytes into the readable text. And the most common is UTF-8, right? 8-bit encoding, meaning each character takes 8 bits of information, right? Totally sensible, 1 byte of information per character. But that is not the only encoding format, and in particular, Microsoft tends to use UTF-16, 16 bits per character. That expands the character space, right, to make room for emojis, things like that. But it also means that if you try to encode UTF-16 data into UTF-8, for every character you get 8 bits, a whole byte of garbage, right, or just nothing. And that's what these dots are. Let's see if we can decode it more visually so that it makes sense. Yeah, let me just fire up another window here. Interactive Python 3. And let's import base 64. And we're going to say encoded equals, and we're going to paste in our payload. Okay? Now, if we say base64.b64 decode payload, what do we get? It would help if I spelled base64 correctly. Oh, I called it encoded, not payload. Way to remember the variable name, Taggart. Okay. If you look at this very, very carefully, you're going to see a bunch of 00s and then characters. Because the characters are getting encoded, but there's a null byte that's 00 after every single one of them. If I try to then... Oops. And that gives me a byte string, I believe. Is that correct? Yes, it's a byte string prepended with that B. If I try to encode it, decode it, meaning turn it from a byte string into a proper string with a UTF, by default it'll do UTF-8, I get the same thing, right? Profoundly unhelpful. But if I tell it to decode it to UTF-16, now I get rid of those null bytes and I can actually read the thing. Now, there's still some other stuff in here that is encoded because there's never just one level of obfuscation in malware like this. But this is how you would get through this. You need to decode it to UTF-16 rather than just from base64. So if we look actually for UTF-16, yeah, that's not going to work. I can't pipe it that way. That does the opposite of what I want to do, right? It makes it worse. So I don't think CyberChef has a great pipeline for exactly this problem, which is why I like to kind of just do it in Python, because it handles this for me. By the way, if you've ever tried to do like a base64 encoded command from Python or from Linux, right? Like pipe like a PowerShell command to base64 to encode it and then run that as an encoded command in PowerShell. If you've ever wondered why it failed, this is why. Because you're sending UTF-8 encoding into it and getting that base64 encoding rather than the UTF-16. All right, let's go. I totally lost track of what the question was that we're answering. Where in the registry was the payload stored? Right. So back to our terminal. Where was this thing stored? HKLM software Microsoft Network debug. Cute. Okay. What PowerShell launch code was used to launch the payload in Investigation 3.1? So for that, we'd be looking launch code, like a nuclear launch code. For launch code, we'd be looking for event ID 1. Pretty sure. So let's go take a look at event ID 1. Or not. Death Bubba, thank you so much for the follow. Do we not have... What are our event IDs in this again? We don't have any event ID ones. We do, however, have a pipe connected, which is interesting. So let's take a look at that 18. Uh-huh. Does anybody know what we're looking at right away? Just curious. Does anyone know what this looks like? This again is off by 1. This is the pipe name, not the process GUID. So as soon as you start looking for that named pipe, you're going to find all sorts of stuff that malware does, right? The work service queries logged in users. So that's part of what's going on here. The malware is looking for logged in users. Also something you're going to see very often with Cobalt Strike, pretty sure. Although this is still Empire, I think. So it's another C2 framework, but same basic concept. What PowerShell launch code was used to launch the payload investigation 3.1? Let's get over to the event viewer just so we can parse through this a little bit more easily. What launch code? That might be in our, actually, that might be in our decoded payload here. Let's fire up a Vim. And see what we can do about this. Enable script block invocation. Collections directives new. Enable script block logging. So what we're seeing here is that it is disabling script block logging. So it's disabling PowerShell logging to prevent us from seeing what's happening. Now we have Sysmon, so that's good news, but it's disabling script block logging. So anything without Sysmon would miss this. It's disabling AMPC. So to prevent PowerShell AMPC protection from hitting this up. There's your destination, Empire C2, host 80. Admin get.php. Download data, and then IEX. I don't think this is actually what they wanted, though. Let's get back to the event viewer, see if there was some other thing. Yes, here it is. This is what they wanted, which we saw as well in our sets here. So what are we looking at? Let's zoom that in. Oh, actually, I can look at it in the XML. We don't have to zoom in. That's a little bit more readable. I'll still zoom it in. So what are we looking at? So we fire off PowerShell. The command equals, we're declaring a variable. What is that variable? The result of get the whatever's stored in this registry key, which we know is that massive encoded command, and then start. Window style hidden, and then we go encoded, that's the command, and then exit. All right, cool. So I believe this is what they're after. Fantastic. What is the IP of the adversary investigation 3.2? Ah, okay, we're moving to 3.2. If this seems like a lot of work, even for this small amount of investigations, you're right, which is why it's really important to have tools that collect this data for you and allow you to parse it. And ideally, a lot of these detections, right, we're doing essentially either incident response or threat hunting, depending on how you want to think about it. You want to be able to have this automated to a large degree, especially across multiple systems. But yeah, this is part of why blue team is so hard. Red team, the attackers need to get this right once, and they're in. The blue team has to get this right every single day, every single time. Okay, so 3.2 looks like we've got a lot of named pipes. We've got network connections, a couple process creates, some file created, raw access reads. This one looks interesting. Okay, so let's fire this up in the event viewer and see if we can just read the story of what's happening here, starting down at the bottom. Once again, it's interesting that the values are kind of disconnected here. But okay, so we have a network connection to this AOL.com. Okay, this 172.168.103.188. Then what happens? PowerShell. Wait a second. The parent PowerShell initiated this connection actually the first time. We don't have the command line for it, but something did that. Okay. There's our network connection from PowerShell. Port 80, port 80, port 80. And then we get a pipe created, an anonymous pipe spawned from PowerShell. We don't know what it's doing. Pipe created, pipe connected. Then we have a process creation. Oh, insane. Process creation. Process ID of 0 is... Oh, no. The process ID is 4804. Again, it's off by 1. And again, see the company? That's not the company. That's the command line. So it's echoing this whole thing to blah.txt. Oh, wild. C users queue app data blah.txt. The colon is interesting. Looks like they're trying to create an alternate data stream. Let's just go ahead and decode this thing. We'll do it the same way we did before with our Python helper. And that's our payload. Looks very, very similar. We're, again, disabling script block logging. Are we disabling AMPC? This one doesn't look like it's disabling AMPC. I don't see that one. Then it's setting up a reverse shell, maybe? No, it's getting process.php from 172.168.103.188. And then it invokes execute. So probably reverse shell. Login process.php. Again, that's something you're going to see very, very often. Take lazy attackers, right? Won't change everything that you can find. That was silly. The second result is PowerShell Empire, because one of the defaults is login process.php is one of the callback URLs. You can change that, but if you don't bother changing it, you're going to get this. So lazy attackers, right? This doesn't happen as much, I think, in the real world anymore. Empire's cool. I think it's, I don't know. A lot of what we see in real life these days is Cobalt Strike. I do appreciate hold my beer security. All right. So, where are we? the IP of the adversary. Well, we've certainly identified that. The full path of the payload in Investigation 3.2, we actually found that too. C users q app data law.txt. Right, because it was using that alternate data stream to hide this thing. What was the full command used to create the scheduled task? We haven't seen that yet, so let's get back in here. We should see this process create, and we'll probably see something like SCA tasks. Search protocol host. C program data Microsoft. Nope. That's not it. Well, it's either in that payload or it isn't. But I'm not seeing it. This is the reverse shell connector, right? So we should be seeing. Are we still in the same investigation? Yes, we are. I mean, by process of elimination, it has to be this situation here. And yet, is not. Oh, you know what? I think a couple of different keys, that makes more sense. I think a couple of registry keys, or not registry keys, but event values got mixed up in here. But I'm not entirely certain. What to do about this, because okay, here we go. Here's your search filter host. No. Don't believe it's that. Oh, here we go. I don't know why I couldn't see that before. I was just not scrolling correctly, I guess. But this is it. This is what I was looking for here. I was very confused why I wasn't seeing a SCA tasks. Right, obviously, this is how we're going to create a scheduled task. Task name updater, cute. And then what is it? It's PowerShell. Right. Again, not company, but whatever. Great. What process was accessed by scatasks.exe that would be considered suspicious behavior? ToeJam, thank you so much for the follow. What process was accessed by scatasks? Let's see. So there's the file updater. Search filter host. No. I'm not really sure what the result here is. What process was accessed by scheduled tasks that would be considered suspicious behavior investigation? 3.2. Well, let's see what we're asking for. Is it PowerShell.exe? No, that doesn't fit. And it's not more. So scheduled tasks has to process was accessed. So this has to happen after. Process accessed. Aha. Here we go. So the XML shows it a little bit better. lsas.exe. There it is. That's what we're looking for. Always trust the XML. I don't know why I stopped doing that. I knew that that was the correct answer. Fantastic. All right, let's move on to, let's close these out. And let's move on to investigation number 4. We're almost done with this thing. Then we should be able to knock out OSQuery in an hour. I feel confident that we can do that. All right, so quick review here. What are we looking at? As usual, these XML details are... The general is messed up. It looks like this is actually looking okay. Yeah, the XML looks okay. So let's see. We have Empire C2 once again. There's our adversary IP, so let's go ahead and just grab that. I think that was the first question. What port is the adversary operating on in investigation 4? Is it 80? Yeah, which is really bad OPSEC. Don't do that, attackers. I mean, actually, just kidding. Criminals, go ahead and use port 80. Pen testers don't do that, though. What C2 is the adversary utilizing in investigation 4? I'm just going to go ahead and say Empire because everything else has been Empire. All right. That's the Sysmon room done and dusted. A lot of good work on Sysmon. Really good practice on how to read these logs and understand what's happening. Let's actually walk through the rest of this investigation just because that wasn't super satisfying. Let's just take a look at what else happened. So there's some other destinations here. 57637, these are Windows RPC ports. It's all just network connections. Okay, there's some more. 80. Okay, so actually nothing super interesting here, just network connections. Never mind. Alrighty, let's do some OSQuery then. Let's get back to our security operations and monitoring path. And if you're interested in playing along, this is the direct link to this path on TryHackMe. Nope, I didn't want to click on that. So you can see that the Suricata room is the next one in the list. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist yet. So we're going to have to leave Suricata alone for now. And let me just go ahead and reset my progress on this one because we're going to take this from the beginning. OSQuery. Let's, yeah, open source tool created by Facebook. Huh. I think I knew that and then totally forgot about it. I deeply despise Facebook, but their open source tools, not so bad. As a longtime React user, I have to say, thank you for that. I also had a chance to see their open hardware stuff. I don't know if you knew this, but Facebook created their own server blades. Created their own open hardware spec. It was really interesting to see how they built their own gear for their data center needs, and but they also made the specs available for other people who wanted to do the same thing. Really interesting. Okay. I'm ready to learn OSQuery. How about you? So the trick with this that I ran into before is that the installation instructions are a little bit unclear. So we're going to kind of walk through how to fix it. Why do I despise Facebook? Are you kidding me? They're responsible for the actual deaths of people in Myanmar by allowing a genocidal coup to like promote itself. Not to mention the misinformation. Not to mention the misinformation that was allowed to be spread during both the 2016 and 2020 elections in the United States. Increasing polarization, allowing disinformation about COVID-19 to spread, not taking action against people who are lying to an electorate to foment conflict. Yeah, that's why. Independent of what we now know about what social media usage does for mental health, especially amongst young kids. Facebook owns Instagram, and we now know that the rise in depression and suicide rates amongst teens can be in large part directly correlated, if not causally linked, to Instagram usage. So, like, that's why. They profit off of the misery of others. Is this part of Hollow from Tuesday? No, this is not part of... We're doing blue team stuff today. Attack stuff happens on Tuesdays. Let's fire up our Windows machine here. Yeah, I don't think you can be paying any kind of attention and not recognize that Facebook as an organization has been net harmful for society. If I lose viewers and followers for saying that, I don't really care. It's absolutely true. All right, this thing is up, but I don't know if it's up, you know, because it's a Windows machine. So we'll see if we can even get a ping from it. Still have an OSQuery machine, OSQuery folder. Yeah, it's not up yet. For real. We have to give it another minute or two to boot. How's everybody doing in chat? Let me take a moment to talk a little bit about last night. So last night we ran our monthly Backdoors and Breaches game on the Discord, and if you aren't a member, come join us. Let me make sure we have a recent invite link here. Yeah, come join us in the Discord. Lots of great folks in there, really helpful people if you're trying to learn something new. And yeah, so what we're trying to do every month, the middle of the month on Friday, we're gonna do a Backdoors and Breaches game, or some version of a tabletop exercise to simulate what it's like to be in the blue team. Oh, Monimo, thank you so much for saying that. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you, Death Bubba. Glad to see you. I'm glad you're enjoying the content. Dang, this thing is still not up. Maybe it just can't be pinged. Let's fire up Ramina and see if we can get to this thing. I know that my VPN is connected, so that should be good. Ah, so just not pingable. Weird. Administrator, let me in. 1, 2, 3. Great. And it doesn't have to stay that tiny. We'll adjust the redraw. Ogosoro, thank you so much. Welcome to the Discord. So what will happen is, like a week before, I'll put up an announcement that we're going to be doing that, and then anybody who wants to be a player, you respond the way that I'm asking you to respond, and then with like a dice reaction, basically. And then you will get the B&B player role, and then you will be able to join the chat and the voice chat and hang out with us on Friday nights. All right, so we're installing OSQuery on this thing. And so OSQuery is both, there's a server and client component, or an agent component, if you want to put it that way. So if you want to collect data from all of your different assets, you would have to deploy the OSQuery agent on all of those devices and set them to phone home to your server. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, I think. Oh. No, is OSQuery already installed here? To interact with OSQuery console shell, type OSQuery I. Okay, let's try to interact with OSQuery. And I will pop the font a little bit so that it's readable. Monimo, don't worry about that. I've been a teacher for a minute now. I'm used to students, even well-meaning ones, not reading instructions. You gonna run? Oh, neat. Okay, so it did run. Now it's using SQLite shell, so the dot commands is how you would look for things. So for example, tables or the schema for looking for things. Okay. What is the version? What did we do? Just do version? Yep. 4602 using SQLite 3340. I'm so glad that you learned so much. 3.340. That's why we're doing this. What is the default output mode? Well, let's run help and see what we got. Ah, there you go. The default output mode is likely going to be... Oh, it's pretty. It says default. Great. So the default is the pretty output mode. Welcome, new viewers. Good to see you all. We're setting up OSQuery, which is a really powerful tool to gain insight into endpoints that are deployed on a network by using an SQL-like syntax. So imagine a database that, or sorry, imagine your Windows system, actually any computer system, as a database that you can query for information and then collect that data in one place. That's what OSQuery is. What is the meta command to set the output to one value per line? Mode line. Dot quit and dot exit. Great. Oh, Lord. Head over to the document, the schema documentation here. Okay, so we're reading documentation for the OSQuery schema. Important to know, right? What kinds of things come into the OSQuery database, and this is how you find that out. Now, I have a feeling... Okay, we are looking at the right version of the schema. We're looking at 4.7.0. Good. What table would you query to get the version of OSQuery installed on the Windows endpoint? Let's just read through all 271 of these to see if there's anything interesting. OSQuery info. Sounds promising. How many tables are there for this version of OSQuery? 271. Oh, hey, Angel. What? I think I ran into this before. It literally says 271 tables. I wonder if it only wants Windows. No, it was 3. It's 271 tables. I have no idea what they're looking for here. It's 271. How many of the tables for this version are compatible with Windows. That was 98, right? Also wrong. I'm losing my mind. Okay, whatever. This doesn't actually matter for what we're trying to do here. I don't care about answering these dumb quiz questions. I care about actually doing the thing. So that's what we're going to do. Well, Angel, they told us to look at the documentation for this one. Those were the very specific instructions. Doptimus, thank you so much for the follow. We can certainly do that, but I'm not about to count the tables. So whatever. This is actually where we need to get to, right? Which is Collide Fleet. This is where you start setting up your Fleet server. The attached VM has Collide Fleet installed and configured thanks to WSL. Steps need to be executed to start Collide. So let's fire up WSL. And we're going to run sudo Redis server demonize yes. Use Control-Shift-CV as copy-paste. Give me my command. There we go. All right, so Redis should be up and running. Or, you know, not. And then sudo service mysql start. Alrighty, what's next? And then this whole thing. And notice that we're not running this as root. What's everybody doing this weekend? I've been trying to get my bike riding distances up. I'm going to shoot for 50 miles tomorrow. Hey, bad at hacking. You're learning mostly? What are you learning? Studying for the CEH. Okay, so that ran. Did I not copy the command? There we go. So let's see. So it's fired up on port 8080 locally. Oh, you're learning blockchain stuff? Okay. It's just math. All right, let's fire up Chrome and go to localhost 8080 and Let's see what we see here. Oh, this machine is underpowered. All right, let's see if we get this thing fired up. I feel like this is different from how it was before. Maybe not. And THM OSQuery, try hack me 1 exclamation point. Okay. Hey, chat. Who knows the secret unlock code for getting past SSL, TLS warning pages? It works for HSTS pages too. Who knows the secret unlock code? Obviously, you can click advanced and proceed, but there's another way to do it. Who knows? If you type proxy through burp, if you type all one word, no spaces, this is unsafe, it will take you through it. Yep. And it works for HSTS as well. This is Chrome. And it works in all Chromium-based browsers. I do it in Fleet. I do it in Brave too. I would like to thank my, at the time, 12-year-old student for teaching me that. He showed that to me and my head exploded. Let's log in here. The least, the most under-resourced fleet server in the universe here. Now it's time to add a host, which will be the actual Windows machine. On the Windows CMD, navigate to Desktop Launcher Windows. Yeah, okay, this is the part that I feel like that won't work. Oh, can you type is bad idea there as well? Does that work as well? That's neat. Great. Glad that there's more than one. He was pretty good. Very strange that AutoHost or AutoMod thought that the word put is bad, but okay. Oh, they changed it from bad idea. This is unsafe. Am I not logging in correctly? What's happening here? It's like not loading. Uh, that didn't work. What is happening? Form class equals login form. Button type equals submit. Okay, it's the JavaScript thing. Why can't I log into Fleet? Oh, interesting. HTTP2 protocol error. Oh no. What version of Chrome are we using? Could you... '89. Okay. Think we're gonna try this in not Chrome. I don't want to have to do this in Internet Explorer, but I will if I have to. Fine. Don't use recommended settings. So basically, the version of Chrome had higher HTTP security requirements than the server that our local Fleet server was allowing. And so I have to not use that browser. Good lord. This room is like Lucy in the football here. Or Charlie Brown in the football. There's no way this is gonna work, is there? No, it's not. So we're getting an HTTP2 error, Chrome. I'm pretty sure I can disable it with flags. Yes. All right. Boy, this is some... I didn't expect to get this wonky for browsers today, but that's what we're doing, I guess. If you've never played with Chrome flags, pretty neat stuff that's in there. What am I doing? I am gonna try to do a little bit of the flare on challenge. I don't know how far I'm gonna get, and I am doing my last bit of studying to take on the eLearn Security threat hunting professional certification at the end of the month. That's the next big exam I have going on. Near as I can tell, that is the highest level blue team cert that I can find. Am I excited for it? Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I've been studying for a while for it. I'm hoping it goes well. Okay, Chrome. I wonder how many versions of Chrome I'm about to... Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is disable HTTP2 support in Chrome ://flags. All these extra settings that you can configure for Chrome. Try Hack Me Room Builders. You have to give your machines more resources than this. What? Is it just in settings now? Nope. I wonder if it won't load localhost. Nope. There it goes. Alright, one more time. We're going to try to log in. If it doesn't work, we're just going to axe it and move on to something else. I don't want to waste your time or mine. What is next, actually? Oh, perfect. That'd be good too, anyway, going through Splunk. Is the Guar still streaming? No. I was gonna say, I know that he's been asking me to do more Splunk stuff. All right, we're gonna watch for the HTTP2 error here. Apparently we're already getting it. All right, there's the login. No response. And I'm sure part of the reason is because we're not getting the API loaded. No, I'm not reading Chrome bugs. I'm not doing that. Okay. Welp, as much as I wanted to show you OSQuery, I think that if we do, we're going to have to do it ourselves in our own lab. So we're going to just leave that alone for right now. And moving on, let's do some more blue team stuff. I guess we're moving over to do some Splunk because this thing is not possible. Ugh. It's so annoying. I'm really annoyed at the Windows machines in TryHackMe because they're underpowered and they're not maintained. And I keep running into these problems where you'll try to go through these things and like you just can't make it through because either they're under-resourced and it lags you to death, or you don't actually have 2 hours on the room because after a certain amount of time, a Windows eval license will turn off the machine after an hour. So you don't actually have as much time to do the room as you think you do. Bit of a problem. Have I done anything in this? Okay, so this is like intro to Splunk. Splunk, for those of you who don't know, is a proprietary security information event management tool. And it costs a lot of money because it's very, very good. It is a way of aggregating your log events across multiple different sources into one place. And it has value not just for the security team, but also for the ops team to see what's going on with your systems. All right. Oh, interesting. I wonder if I can just navigate to it without having to get on the machine. You know what I mean? Like, they're telling me to remote desktop into this, but why would I want to do that if I could just access the Splunk server remotely? Now, maybe I can't, but it would be nice. There are other SIM solutions out there. I would really like to see... I've never had a chance to play with Exabeam, but I really want to see what that's all about. And obviously there's the Elk Stack, Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, which if you want to do a full open source build of a SIM, that's what you would do. And we will build, my plan eventually is to actually go through the process of building up a whole security architecture with open source tools from soup to nuts. So we'll start by building out the Elk Stack. We won't use Security Onion because I don't want the fast, easy version. I want to do it step by step. We're going to build the Elk Stack. We're going to build out packet capture. We're going to build out log collection, the whole smash, right? And understand how we can build out a pretty reasonable security program with a minimal of software licensing fees, if that's a concern for an organization, where you're paying for, you know, your hardware and you're paying for the skills of your employees, but you're not necessarily paying a whole lot of license. All right, this thing's open. Let's see if we can ping it. No, but that doesn't mean that I can't actually get to it. I'm gonna try. It may not be up yet, though. I'll keep trying to ping. Is this just kind of like... This is just a tour through. You know what? Then we're gonna not do this. Because this is just like a tour of Splunk, but this isn't like actually doing something real. So instead, I am going to take us over to... Have I done Boss the Soc V1? We won't get through all this today, but we'll get started. Yes, we have done some of this, but I'm going to reset my progress on it so that we can do it from the jump. So this is going to be what we do for the next couple, the rest of today and also next week, is just Splunk. Splunk Fest 2021. Now, by the way, Splunk actually does have a dev license. If you want to experiment with Splunk, you can actually download and fire up Splunk in your own home lab if you want. You can, in fact, do that. If you're a Splunk Enterprise or Cloud customer. So, like, if your company has Splunk, you can pull this if you want. Little bit tricky to request a license, but you can make it happen. That being said, I do think there's value in learning how to use the Elk stack as well. See, are we up and running yet? I'm going to close the Ramina because the Splunk room for sure is not RDP'd. Yeah, there we go. Probably not up and running yet, though. Move on to the quiz while Splunk loads. Okay. Splunk queries always begin with this command implicitly unless otherwise specified. What command is this? When performing additional queries to refine received data, this command must be added at the start. The answer is search. Ah, there we are. And we're in. What's this app? So one of the things that's kind of interesting about, one of the things that's kind of interesting about Splunk is you can create apps for it. And there are a lot of really cool ones in Splunk Base, which is the Splunk App Store. And it can kind of tie into all sorts of different services. All right, so here's our challenge. When search, let's do a basic search since we're doing our intro to Splunk here. We are going to just go over to the search and reporting app. Urizen Lux, thank you so much for the follow. So the first thing I like to do when I'm in a brand new Splunk instance is I want to just do like index equals star, no spaces, and I pipe that to table or stats, actually count by source type. And what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get a breakdown of what kind of data is in the Splunk index. And that's from the last 24 hours. I could go like the last 30 days if I wanted. And you can see I did get a different hit. So stream HTTP, stream IP, and stream UDP. So now I know the kind of data that I'm looking at. That's really, really helpful. If I go to all time, what am I going to pull here? So you see there's a lot more if I do all time because this is where I'm actually supposed to be looking, right? Things like when event log, there's my Sysmon logging, pretty cool that I have that in there. I have DNS, I have LDAP data, SMB, really, really interesting stuff, Suricata alerts as well. So now I have an idea of what kind of stuff I have. There's straight win event log. And if I wanted to sort them by how many I have, I would do a sort command, sort count, or sort minus count to sort descending. So, by the way, those of you who've seen a lot of pipes going on here, and it seems a little bit like PowerShell or something else like that, you're not wrong. But also, Splunk is essentially a functional programming language, where you are transforming data from one shape to another in order to get your result. Probably one of the reasons I like it so much. And so you can see that most of our logs are Sysmon logs, followed almost, 50% by SMB logs, then Suricata, then win event, all sorts of other stuff. So now we have an idea of the shape of the data, right? This is like exploratory data analysis. We know the kinds of things that we have. And we're going to keep this in mind as we go through whatever the questions are. When searching for values, it's fairly typical within security to look for uncommon events. What command can we include within our search to find these? The answer is rare. There is a rare filter, so we'll use some of that. What about the inverse? What if we want the most common security event? That would be top. So just to give you an idea, let's go ahead and do that. So let's actually pull in our win event log. So we'll add source type win event log. And then rare event code. That should be how that's parsed. Yep, event code. There are 47 event codes, but I want to see what the rarest ones are. And that gives me a statistics table of the rarest codes. And you can actually, rare is kind of a shorthand. You could make this happen with your own kind of table command, but rare does it for you. So you can see it gives you the percentage, the count. These are the rarest event codes. If I do top event codes, same deal. 4703s, 5145s, 4688s, all sorts of fun stuff here. So there's rare and top. When we import data into Splunk, what is it stored under? I assume they mean it's under an index. Yes. So an index is a repository of information, and the indexer is what actually processes the data so that it is searchable. We can create views that allow us to consistently pull up the same search over and over again. What are these called? Dashboards? Yeah. So dashboards in Splunk, I know this is a kind of crash course here, but dashboards are, let's make one really quickly. I love this one. Login failures. So create dashboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a panel. And we'll make a new panel, and I want it to be an area chart. No, we'll do a statistics table. And it's going to be index equals source type equals win event log, security, event code equals, so this is Windows logon failures, straight logon failures. 4625 is the event code for logon failure. And then we're going to stats count by user sort minus count. So we're going to look for the top failed logins across the environment. Let's make sure this thing actually works the way we'd expect. And we have to change the timing. That'll be all time. And let's add that to the dashboard. No results found. Let's hit save and see if it actually refreshes. No results. There have been no login failures in this environment. Seems sus. But apparently there have been no 4625s, no logon failures. Ever. If we were to change this by 4624, we could see the... I wonder if this isn't parsed correctly. Let's do stats count by account name, which is the other way this gets named. What? My brain is breaking. How is it possible? I mean, first of all, we just saw that there were event code 4624s. Is it not in the security index? Or the security source type? Oh. Okay, let's go ahead and edit that. There's the event code, but it's not parsed. See how it doesn't have the right fields? Dang, that's unfortunate. But it's also confusing because I thought we were just looking at an event code that was correct, weren't we? This thing has no events in the security source type. That's very odd. Let's see if we can just find the string. We can just search raw. 0 events. I don't believe this. We know we had 4624, right? All right, that shows up. And look at that. There are your interesting fields. And there's your account name. So if we were to try to pipe this, it's very strange. Let's sort that minus count. So the top logins across the environment are null, administrator, these machine accounts, anonymous login, system, and then Bob Smith is our only real user. All right. And so a dashboard would save that query for us. I guess I could make it login successes. Yeah. So now we have that saved as one of our dashboards if we wanted to. All right. Let's see if we can get through just these questions first. Importing data doesn't always go as planned, and we can sometimes end up with multiple copies of the same data. What command do we include in our search to remove these copies? Dedupe. Splunk can be used for more than just a sim, and it's commonly used in marketing to track things such as how long a shopping trip on a website lasts from start to finish. What command can we include in our search to track how long these event pairs take? That's a good question. I don't know. Transaction, I think, is what we're looking for here. And the Splunk documentation is excellent, but it takes some practice to get used to it. Yeah, there we go. Nifty. In a manner similar to Linux, we can pipe search results to further commands. We've already seen that. That's the pipe. Performing data analytics with Splunk. Ironically, what the tool is at its core. That's not the correct usage of its. Don't worry. It's useful to track occurrences of events over time. What command do we include to plot this? Time chart. What if we want to gather general statistical information about search? Stats. Data imported into Splunk is categorized into columns called what fields? When we import data into Splunk, we can view its, again, incorrect usage of its. Possessive its doesn't have an apostrophe. It is the contraction has an apostrophe. What is this called? I'm looking for the machine aspect of this here. When we import data into Splunk, we can view its point of origin. The machine aspect of this here. Oh. Let's look at Splunk to see exactly what they're asking for here. We go to setting and data inputs. Let's see. These are the file and directories. Host, perhaps? When we import data into Splunk, we can view its point of origin from within a system. What is this called? Will be a path or first page of the quick reference sheet. Oh, there was a quick reference sheet I was supposed to look at? Oh, I see. The attached quick reference. I never read the instructions even though I'm supposed to. Because I want to see how much I can just know. First page. Indexer? It's just source, I think, is what we're after here. Yes. We can classify these points of origin and group them all together, viewing them as their specific type. We've seen this already. That is source type. When performing, so source is, the location of a file, whereas source type is the categorization. So I don't care as much about source almost ever as I do about source type. When performing functions on data we are searching through, we use a specific command prior to the evaluation itself. When performing functions, eval. Eval allows us to create variables, allows us to extract regular expression data, all sorts of cool stuff. Oh, there it is. Love it or hate it. Regular expression is a massive component of Splunk. What command do we use to specify regex? Rex. God, how many more of these are there? It's fairly common to create subsets and specific views for less technical Splunk users. What are these called? Pretty sure it's not data models. It's not data models. Oh, pivot tables. Pivot views. Yeah. What is the proper name of the time date field in Splunk? This one's important. Let's look at some events here. Let's go back to our index equals star, source type equals win event log. Well, let's look at HTTP. Why not? So this is the time field, and it doesn't show up in the event itself, but it is a field. And actually, if we look over on the side, just kidding, it's not going to show there either. Anyway, there are two kind of magic fields inside of Splunk events. One of them is _raw, which is actually the raw text of the message, right? Which is what you see when you click on raw. And the other one is _time, which is the timestamp. How do I specifically include only the first few values found within my search? Head? Yeah. More useful than you would otherwise imagine. How do I flip the order that the results are returned in? First. When viewing search results, it's often useful to rename fields using user-provided tables of values. What command do we use? What command do we include within a search? The trick to this question is the user-provided tables of values. What are those? Well, we haven't looked at them yet, but that would be lookups. And so the command to take advantage of lookup tables is lookup. We can collect events into specific time frames to be used in further processing. What command do we include within a search to do just that? That's a good question. Oh, we got a raid coming in. 0x Bufu, thank you so much. Welcome, friends. Doing a little bit of Splunk. I want my group results. Hey, Chad. Let me see here. If you're familiar with Minecraft, you use this to pick up bucket. The what? All right. That's new to me. Orbital, thank you so much for the sub for Chad. Oh, alias for bin command. Yeah, okay. It's interesting that they use the alias. Puts continuous numerical values in discrete sets. That was very poorly worded then. Yeah, that's not correct. Bin isn't really about time frames. It's about creating a histogram. Gingerroot, thank you so much for the sub to the sub network. Really appreciate it. Yeah, a histogram is a kind of chart. If you have a histogram, basically what you're doing is you are grouping all of the values into bins of a certain range. So if I have like a set of scores between 0 to 100, and like most of them, like if I want to see what the curve on a test is, or what the distribution of scores on a test is, right, I would create a histogram and create bins of like 10 points, and then the bars would represent how many values fell within that range. That's what bin does. It's not about time, really. It's about ranges. We can also define data into specific sections of time to be used with chart commands. What command do we use? This is different. So when we make a time chart, this one we can actually demonstrate. So let's say I wanted to show stream HTTP. Let's do time chart count by, what do I have? I have count by, let's do count by dest IP. And let's go to the visualization. I don't like a line chart for this one. I would prefer to, or a column chart. I would prefer an area chart. Okay, let's go to all time. And now there's a whole bunch down there. Let's, if we go to events, let me go to verbose mode so I get the events as well. And what I want to do is I want to zoom to that section. There we go. And if I wanted to, I could do like span equals 1 hour. And that changes the way that the bucketing is done. Now, this is too big, I think, to actually do this by hour. If I wanted to see that further, I would need to zoom in more specifically into August 10th. At which point now you can see that I have my span of 1 hour. If I wanted to break it down even more, if I wanted to go to 30 minutes, I should be able to do that as well. So even though the x-axis is still showing me hours, you can see that my dots are actually going by, my changes are going by 30 minutes. So I do have that level of resolution. If I wanted to go to 15 minutes, let's actually go to 10 minutes just to see what happens. I might have too many events for that level of, yeah, I would have to zoom in further to get that. So I go to like 9 p.m. Now you can see that I've got my span the way that I want it. Right? Pretty cool. Okay, so span, that's what that's about. When producing statistics regarding a search, it's common to number the occurrences of an event. Ouch. Last but not least, it's plainly not last. What is the website where you can find the Splunk apps at? That's Splunk Base. We can add new features into Splunk. What are these called? Apps, which is what they put up here. All right, chat, you can do this one. What does SOC stand for? What do we got? Security. Quiet chat today. Security Operations Center. Nice work, Ogosoro. What does SIM stand for? Guess what? The S is security again. Chad, you seem to be having pivot struggles. Drop in the Discord and talk about it. Nice job, Ogosoro. Security, information, and event management. Yep. If anybody is studying for, so the CH, if anyone's studying for the Security Plus or the CISA Plus, this is the stuff you're gonna need. Boss of the SOC is the name of the Splunk challenge that we're doing, and this one always messes it up. This messes me up because it's like community.splunk.com. Yeah. But I think that is different than what it used to be. So I don't know if this is going to be correct. No, that looks right. It used to be answers.splunk.com. Alright. Yeah, I was saying something about dropping into the Discord. Chad was saying that he's having some issues on pivoting. And so our Discord is a great community of really talented security folks who are all super eager to help each other out. So if you have a thing that you're working on, you're a little bit stuck, join us. Ask some questions. If we can help you out, somebody is going to do so. Hey, Trisma. All right. I actually think we're gonna, even though some folks just dropped in, I think we're gonna just pause there for today because the rest of this room is pretty involved and it's going to take most of a session. So I think we're going to save that for next week and kill this. So I think that's going to do it for today. Things going on. Next week is Wild West Hackin' Fest. It is virtual this year. If you haven't signed up, I strongly encourage you to do so. I'll be doing the CTF for Wild West Hackin' Fest. I'll be hanging out doing some talks. We next Tuesday, of course, I'll be doing also the rest of the Hollow Room, or at least as much as we can get through in an evening. And Wednesday, we'll be continuing with the Python programming, where we're building out our Blue Team Jupyter notebooks. So if you're interested in that, join us Tuesday or Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Let's see if there's anybody streaming right now that we can send y'all to. Okay. I don't know any of these folks. So does anyone have a recommendation? Savitar, Yurdex, 8 handles. Wednesday for Python, Monomo, and Tuesday for pen testing the Hollow network. Let's see what Hate Handles is up to. Lord. All right, well, we'll just set that. We'll send you guys there. Good. All right, then. Until next time, friends, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking.